My name is Erica, and I am a spoken word artist, a student, and a believer in change. I want students to walk away knowing that there's power in solidarity. I want students to walk away knowing that there is possibility for us to imagine a new church, for us to imagine new people that serve a creator that wants things to be in balance and wants injustices to come to surface and for us to create change.
A poem as prayer. A prayer as poem. How shall I proceed? Shall I put my hands together and bow my head before I refer to God and beg that He transform into a reflection of me? Knowing that most days I pray simply to figure out a way to breathe and see a little bit more light in my gray, a little less rain in my day, a little more weight in my say when I choose to acknowledge I have run out of answers. Too tired to search and too scared to trust. But maybe, now bear with me, but maybe if he were not a lord or a king, but a survivor of rape. Maybe if he were a she and she bled once a month upon that cross, I would feel a little bit more safe. And if her wrists were cut by the broken mirrors of her own humanity, I would feel okay because I would be assured that the great divine understood my pain. Maybe if she were branded too, covered in tattoos. Maybe if she had ink on her dark skin that reflected the violence she was born in and served as hieroglyphs and roadmaps to her truth. Maybe if she were short and thick with her shoulders hunched over and her tailbone tucked in order to detour attention, in order to avoid the mention that she was sex and that breasts and thighs were to be offered at their best. Force taught the art of dress to impress because the goal here was survival. Maybe if she woke up wondering if it was miracle or will that kept her from sitting still and helped her survive a cross that felt irreconcilable. Maybe then she could teach me how to live life a little less scary so that I could look into a stranger's eyes without the weight of 1 in 3 being raped every 15 seconds on my shoulders, without the fear of my younger sisters getting older and being given that strong woman cross when brother, cousin, father decide to show them how to take their clothes off, and mothers who don't know how to be mothers are too busy bending over trying not to fall into the mercy of others that insist that she is not a part of the 3 that are supposed to make you believe that there is hope. Maybe God would be merciful enough to transform into infinite Mary so that I could cope. And I could understand the systemic word of my spirit as an inspiration to keep writing. That would be dope. Because I have to believe that poems can be prayers, and prayers can be poems. And maybe, just maybe, if you clap loud enough at the end of this war song, I will believe that we can speak into existence our own psalms, because I have to believe we can speak into existence our own psalms. And somehow through my voice I can translate, correct, and identify the wrongs that I feel nail me to your cross. Yo, what if God were reflections? What if God were trying to teach us how to erase the idea of perfections? Maybe then my brothers and sisters would stop bleaching, and my brothers might stop bleeding, and my sisters might start eating, and maybe we could understand that God is just the courage for seeing that our complex stories are divine. And my words and pain are not just mine, but del pueblo. Maybe then I would understand when they say that God's people say, amen. And the church says, we let it be. But how long will we continue to not see that we got some things to work out before we are all truly free? So brothers and sisters, I sincerely hope that you can hear me. I stand before you today as a queer woman of color, proud Methodist, activist that does spoken word. I'm armed with tears, pushed by anger, and sustained by faith and truth. That teaches me we are all connected. Storytelling through art is essential to my ministry, and I have found that because of this, my ministry is unconventional. And I realize very clearly that I don't read out of a hymnal or necessarily exclusively read the Bible, because I believe that in addition to the sacred stories of the Bible, we have our own sacred stories that need to be shared. And we've heard that this weekend. We've heard that yesterday with Pastor Rudy's reflections. Many of our stories include that of rape, include that of systemic racism, discrimination, of anxiety, loneliness, brokenness, rebirth, joy, moments of clarity, accomplishment. See, I've found that somehow stories tap into an array of emotions, and they allow us to see both and. I'm both different from you, but we are both the same, right? And stories provoke us to start thinking about how to understand being alive a little bit better, being alive in relation to each other, right? So what I do is simple. I work implementing and teaching the concept of community vulnerability through art. So I gave you my story. This is me being vulnerable in hopes that you will reflect the same vulnerability. But the concept of the cipher is really that you have to have courage to really create and share, right? Last night we had a cipher. We had the open mic, and shout out to all of y'all who came out and shared. And it was a moment of just kind of having the courage to share with your peers and offer yourself. And it does take courage. It takes courage to both speak and to listen. And I find that it's necessary to tap into that courage, because when we do, we learn how to honor others' talents as creators with agency and complex humanity. Let me say that again. So when we listen and when we tell, we learn how to honor others as creators with agency and complex humanity. And this is a little bit different, right? This is a little bit different than a lot of the ministry that we do in the church, because many times we go into the poor communities, we go into third world countries, and we give them a narrative. We assume a narrative onto them. Usually it's a narrative of they are poor, they are victim, they need help, right? And when we blanket this narrative, we take away their agency as storytellers. We take away the complex experiences that are political and historical. And many times we uphold these ideas of racism and classism and imperialism. And that's very real. So as a daughter of political activists, I was taught to see this very early on, right? So I was taught to see this in faces that would many times look at me and give me this kind of notion of, oh, you poor little Mexican girl, right? And many of the times those people that gave me these faces, or through words, were people that took away my narrative, took away the complexity of what I had experienced, and not knowing that my parents are educated leaders in their communities, right? So navigating this, right, and still navigating this as somebody that they would identify as marginalized, as victim, right? And for me, it is the challenge of what I call spiritual artivism. Y'all can take that. It's a cool word, spiritual artivism, right? And so that is activism that taps into the spiritual power of art. And I think we do that when we create spaces of vulnerability that will help people heal, because everybody needs to tell their story, right? Everybody needs to somehow get it out. And when we heal ourselves, we begin seeing our connections with others. We begin seeing how I am a reflection of you. But we really need to think about what that means in this body, in this society, what that means. So I think that when we start telling stories, we start becoming accountable to the world. So I leave you with 2 questions, okay? And these questions are not exclusive to people who consider themselves artists, although I feel like we all are. That's such a mom thing to say, right? No, you're really creative. Y'all are really artists, I promise. But no. I mean, I love everyone. I do. But these are questions for people that are hungry to heal, right? I'm not telling you to turn into a political activist that's like out there marching and protesting, although we need those people too. But we really need healthy human beings, because when we talk about injustices, we're talking about wounds that continue in cycles. You know, people that are taught hate, people that are taught how to ignore, people that are taught to just suppress and teach their children how to suppress. And that's not what we're about. I don't think that that's what the church is about. So we need to start healing ourselves and healing in community, and being vulnerable, not being scared to be vulnerable. We live in a very spiritual phobic society, but a very vulnerable phobic society. I just made that up. But you know, it's real. We need to start talking about the things that wound us, because we all experience different levels of violence that are connected to a bigger picture. So these two questions, let's get back to the point. How are you, or can you, create spaces in which stories can be told and heard rather than assumed and preached at? Right, y'all feel me? Nod your head. Yes? Okay, you listening? I'm gonna say it again because y'all falling asleep on me. How are you, or can you, create spaces in which stories can be told and heard rather than assumed and preached at? Because we do a lot of that in the church. And it's not just old folks. So, you know, we have to work on that. Number two, how are you engaging the personal with the political in your life and in your faith communities that honor the complexities of our human experience? And I say our human experience because we're in this together, right? We're not separate. We talk about these dichotomies of the church and not the church. No, we're all the world, and we're all reflecting on what has happened in the history of humanity. We are just a part of that history. We're living history. So let's get the bigger picture clear. And so I leave you with those two questions on a serious note, right? And this is for the church, because I feel like we have been called to do something big, but this is for us as human citizens of the world, right? On a bigger scale, you as a person. So I leave you with those things, and I offer you my story, and I offer you myself as a resource. Thank you.